Did you know that 80% of app users abandon an app after using it only once? But are you someone who perhaps are building features that are driving users away? Or on the other hand, have you as a user been there before? You could say it's like developers are locked in the room and they're just throwing darts at a board of random features wondering, well, what shall we build next? Let's roll the dice, shall we? But jokes aside, let's dive a bit deeper into the laws of UX, because this is where we really understand some foundational things. Now, we're not just going to list off some definitions. We're going to explore why these principles are so crucial, especially if you're in leadership or you're aspiring to be. Crucially, we're going to talk about why focusing solely on features is a recipe for disaster, leading to basically what's known as a blame game, or even creating a culture of that within your organization or your design team. So stay tuned and learn why this is so crucial to your own impactful change and personal growth. Now, the laws of UX, in essence, are observations of how humans interact with things. Now, they're based on the principles of psychology, so you could say that's human behavior, as it were. Design principles and years of experience. So we're talking about proven methods, proven research here. So think of it as rules of thumb. Now, we're not going to cover all of them, of course, but we will in future videos. We'll talk about some of the other laws of UX. But let's just talk about a few of the big hitters, the foundational things that really apply in this particular video. Hick's law. More choices, the longer the decision. So the rule of thumb here is to simplify. Now, the principle really highlights the importance of simplifying the choices the user has, whether that be in an interface, a physical product, or a physical space such as a store. Now, to improve usability and to reduce cognitive load, applying this principle is key to the success of the user and, of course, for you as a business. Because if they can decide on what they want, then they'll buy it most likely. Jacob's law. Users prefer your site to work like other sites they already know. Now, this is a fairly proven and well-documented behavior in humans. So, if they learn something somewhere else and they're used to doing that somewhere else, when they come to your site, they kind of expect the same thing. So don't reinvent the wheel unnecessarily, basically. And innovate where it matters, not just where you think you should, because, well, it's a nice feature. Fitts law. The bigger and closer something is, the easier it is to interact with. Now, think clickable buttons on a mobile phone. Let's just say also you may have users who have big fingers or massive thumbs. So you want something to be bigger and easier for them to click on and interact with. So our next one, Miller's Law. People can generally only keep around 7 or plus or minus 2 or so items in their working memory. Now, Miller's Law has been a well-established behavioral principle. Now, that can vary sometimes depending on the environment. Think Amazon.com and how many items they have in their menu system. But again, the environment calls for that. But of course, grouping things does help. On to our next one, the peak end rule. Now, people judge an experience largely based on how they felt at its peak and at its end, rather than the total sum or average of every moment of the experience. Now, you see, you could have an amazing experience at the beginning, searching for a product, and all of these things. You may have the latest and greatest ways in which someone can automatically and quickly find, with assistive technologies, a product and then put it into the bag. Now, let's just say that the way in which someone checks out on your website is awful. They struggle to put in their credit card details or even PayPal or any other type of payment system or information to use to procure your product. Now, what are they going to remember? The things at the beginning, the way in which it was so easy to find a product, or how hard it was to actually buy the product. They're not going to want to come back if they've had a bad peak end experience. All they remember is how bad it felt at the end or at its peak. Just remember that. The aesthetic usability effect. People perceive aesthetically pleasing designs as more usable even if they aren't. Now, does that conflict with some of the other principles we've discussed? Well, possibly, but not normally. It really does depend. You have to test. Now, what's the problem with feature-focused thinking? Well, let's get into it. Here's the truth bomb, right? Knowing these laws is great, but they're useless if you're trapped in a feature factory mindset. Now, sometimes it's not necessarily the fault of the design team, and we'll talk about that in a minute. There could be many reasons for this. What do I mean? I mean when you're solely focused on shipping more features, regardless of whether they solve a real problem, or even if it's just a real fit for the user altogether, or even your organization, or even your brand, or the experience in itself. Think of it like this. Now you're building a house, and you decide you need a state-of-the-art home theater. But here's the thing. The foundation's cracked. The plumbing leaks. The electrical wiring is dodgy, and, well, the home theater, well, it's going to be really expensive. But you go ahead with it anyway. You try to do this. But ultimately, even after it's installed, this thing is ultimately unusable. And why is that? Because the theater room's flooded. So what should have had a higher priority? Well, it's not the theater, obviously, because that's expensive as it is. But ultimately, it's the foundations of what the theater would be sitting upon. That would be the foundations of the building. That would be the plumbing and all these things, because you can't use the theater because it's flooded. Now, let's take another example. Imagine a streaming service. Leadership obsesses over interactive features like live polls during shows, but they neglect to fix the horrendous buffering issues of the live stream and the unintuitive search function as well when someone's trying to search through different comments and so forth within the live stream. So users complain and your customer support is overwhelmed, but leadership pat themselves on the back and they think, well, this is great, we've innovated. But they haven't really addressed the fundamental problem or pain points. You see, the live polls are a complete flop because the users are so busy trying to get the videos to play. So this is a situation that breeds frustration and ultimately leads to, well, user churn, user dropout. But let's consider another example, one that's more e-commerce based as well. So let's think of an e-commerce platform that is heavily invested in a new AI-powered product, which is a recommendation engine. Well, it sounds great, right? This thing can automatically find what you want, and it has all the bells and whistles needed for you to have a great search and merchandising experience. However, the checkout process is riddled with bugs, leading to abandoned carts, and the shipping costs are unclear, and the return policy is buried deep within the FAQ. It's not easy for customers to find. So, despite the fancy AI and all the other pieces of technology that connect to help that AI be possible on the front end for customers, customers are still leaving in droves because the core functionality is broken. So this leads to the office blame game, and the design team blames the development team, the marketing team blames the product team blames the design team, and it goes around and around in circles. So everyone's pointing fingers ultimately, and no one's taking ownership over the overall user experience. So these are examples that are, in essence, real problems. So the anecdote to the feature factory, well, it's problem solving first. So before you even think about features, you need to deeply understand your users and the problems and the needs that they have. What are their pain points? What are their goals? What do they do outside of your environment, outside of their touch points with your brand? So instead of asking about what new feature can we build and making sure that your feature list is packed to the full and everyone has full productivity, being a feature-led organization, ask what are the biggest obstacles preventing your users from achieving their goals, whether that is a digital or physical product or even a physical space. So break the problem down. And once you've identified the core problem, break it down even smaller into manageable pieces. And then prioritize those pieces based on impact and feasibility, or even impact and effort. Now, there are various different videos that I've created on impact and effort and SWOT analysis. Click on those in the description or in the link that's going to pop up on the screen right now. Now, let's go back to that example of the streaming service. So instead of launching the half-baked live poll feature, guess what they could have done? They could have focused on optimizing video playback, reducing the buffering, redesigning the search functionality so you have better discoverability, and then improve the checkout process so it's more intuitive and it's more user-friendly. So by addressing the foundational issues, the streaming service would provide a smoother, more enjoyable user experience, leading to increased user retention, engagement, and more. So instead of building more, focus on building better. Solve the foundational problems first. Make the core of the experience smooth and enjoyable. And then and only then start to think about adding the bells and whistles onto the experience. So how does this all tie into leadership? Because everything we've talked about so far is generally mostly tactical, right? How to build stuff, how to do things better, and what laws kind of apply. Well, leaders are responsible for setting the vision and direction. Now, if they're solely focused on features, they're leading teams down a dangerous path, and the teams will only do what the leaders set as the tone or the direction. Now, a true leader, especially within the UX space, understands the importance of user centricity. Now, they're going to champion a problem-solving approach. So we're talking about problem to solve, desired outcome, really making sure that you have the working formula and you're not doing one instead of the other, which essentially is feature-based. So they really try to empower their teams to understand the user and not just build features. So we are talking about storytelling, which applies to leaders onboarding their teams in this context. Let's click on the link to watch more about that. That is the power of storytelling and the secret behind its success. Now, as Jacob Nielsen highlights in his article on Founder Mode, great leaders foster a culture of innovation that is grounded in customer needs, not just technological possibilities. Jacob emphasizes the importance of founders and leaders not being driven by shiny new objects, but staying laser focused on the core value proposition for the user. So it's not about blindly chasing trends and, like I said, adding to your feature list to make sure you are fully productive and you can justify a team or justify what you're doing from a feature set perspective. It's about ruthlessly prioritizing the things that will actually make a difference for the user. Now, leaders need to be able to say no to distracting features, even if they seem shiny and exciting. See, they need to be willing to invest in the less glamorous, but ultimately more important work of fixing the foundations, fixing the plumbing, so your home theatre doesn't flood and it becomes unusable. See, this also means fostering an environment where it's safe to challenge assumptions and push back on ideas. So it's also about creating a culture where solving problems is celebrated more than shipping features. Now let's look at some more leadership examples. Think of companies known for their great user experience. Companies that actually listen to their users and take the time to fix the problems. See, these are the companies that are led by UX visionaries, not by just those chasing trends or building as many features as possible. See, these companies prioritize research, testing, and iteration. They live by data. They understand that UX is not just about aesthetics, it's about solving problems, real problems, and making people's lives easier. The same people that make those companies or brands successful. Now let's get practical, shall we? So here are a few things that you can do today to improve your UX and leadership mindset. Challenge the why. So before starting any new feature, ask, well, why are we building this? What problem does it solve? And how can we, or how do we know it solves that problem? Now talk to your users. Don't rely on assumptions only. That's just a recipe for disaster. It only gets you so far. So get out there, talk to your users, understand their pain points. There are free ways to do so. And believe me, if you've not tried it before, just test the waters. You'll be surprised by how willing your customers are to give you feedback. Prioritize ruthlessly. Not every feature is created equal. So you want to focus on the things that will have the biggest impact. Use impact versus effort to help prioritize the features that you want to try to build that will solve real problems and validate if they will, of course. Now embrace iteration. You see, UX is not a one and done process. So you want to continuously test, continuously iterate, continuously improve. So the laws of UX, they are powerful tools, but they are useless without a strategic problem-solving mindset. So as leaders, we need to shift the focus from shipping features to solving problems. Remember, don't just build, solve. Prioritize the user, not the feature list. Solving fundamental problems unlocks greater opportunities for improvement and innovation. By embracing this approach, you can create truly exceptional user experiences, build stronger products, and foster a culture of innovation where feedback, pushback, and radical candor will be embraced. I hope you found this video helpful, and if you did, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel so you can get more content on UX design, leadership, and of course, personal growth. Now let me know in the comments what UX laws you find most helpful, or what ones you are already applying in your day-to-day. Remember, stay present, stay curious, and I'll see you in the next video.